All right, some bad news if you're a home seller, and some good news if you're a home buyer in 2025, according to these articles and some data points that I'm going to share with you. If you're a seller, I'm also going to tell you what you should do and when you should list in order to get top dollar here for your house in 2025. And I'm going to show you as a buyer what the data is showing could be the best time for you. Now, if we flip over here, pending home sales are down 10.1% annually, the biggest decline in more than a year. So this Redfin's Home Buyer Index, also a measure of tours and other buying services, is near its lowest level since June. Homes are also selling relatively slowly, with the average taking 52 days. That is the longest in the last 2 years. That data is not being favorable to sellers, and it is showing something that potentially could be advantageous for a home buyer. And I want to show you what's actually going on here in our local Utah housing market. If I remove myself entirely, if we take a look here, over here to the right, we have an increase in inventory levels of 29.6%. That is nearly a 30% increase of January 2025 compared to January of 2024. 30% higher than a year ago. 9,427 homes here, January 29th, compared to 7,272 homes, January 29th of 2024. That's essentially 2,200 more homes and almost 30%. Now I'm going to show you some other articles that's showing what's happening in the housing market, some other data points and other graphs, and then I'll explain to you some things in greater detail. Now before we get into that, do me a favor, smash that like button. It'll help me get this video in front of more people. It'll help me with the YouTube algorithm. And also subscribe, because you'll be notified when new videos drop, and nobody else is sharing this kind of data information with you other than Denko the Realtor. And when you do need a realtor in Utah, Denko the Realtor has your back anywhere in Utah. My contact information is down below in the description. If you want to strategize now, if you have any questions, if things aren't making sense, I have people reaching out all the time, and I absolutely love it. We can strategize, give you data points, give you a better understanding over the phone if something's confusing here. Let's go back over here. 7,200 compared to 9,400. I want to show you some more articles before I show you some of these graphs here that is to our Utah housing market. Right here, U.S. home sales in 2024 fell to the lowest level in nearly 30 years. And if we take a look at this graph here, last year and this year is, almost identical. 4.09 million sold last year compared to 4.06. You'd have to go back all the way to 1996, essentially a 29-year low. And if you take a look here, look how much lower we are than the pandemic years and even the pre-pandemic years. Much lower. And how much bigger is the population today than it was in the mid-1990s? Substantially bigger. Yet the home sales are just as low as they were in the mid-90s. Now, what is this telling us what's going on in the Utah housing market? I'm going to share that here with you. But before I do that, I have an ultimate home buyer's guide that is going to be completed and ready to be sent out. I had a ton of people sign up. We had some setbacks. I actually deleted the first home buyer's guide that I recorded, and I recorded an even better one. This is going to be the ultimate buyer's guide. It's going to show you the home buying process all the way from the beginning to the end. That way you have less stress, a lot more enjoyment in the home buying process. You're not going to have the anxiety, the stress, wondering what's going to happen. I'm showing you in that home buyer's guide, the pre-approval, the inspections, what contracts look like, negotiating, the deadlines, everything is going to be, and the link to that buyer's guide is going to be down below in the description. Make sure you sign up, and I'll send that email to you next week. Now back over here, if we take a look at this, and go to this data points in these articles over here, look at what's going on with the number of listings entered. If we take a look here, this blue dot, so right there, that blue dot to the left is higher than it was in 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024 for January. We still have 2 more days because I'm recording this on a Wednesday, and inventory is going to continue increasing the 24th or Thursday and Friday here for these next 2 days in January. Inventory levels go up starting sometime at the end of Tuesday, maybe sometime in Wednesday, and a lot of the listings hit Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the listings start going under contract after the weekends. So that's why you're seeing a pattern like this with under contracts, also with what's going on with the inventory levels, because inventory is not hitting consistently every single day. There's days of the week where inventory is higher, or lower, and because of the amount of listings that are hitting, but we have to look at what's happening with the net gains. And that's what I'm going to show you here. And this is why this is going to show you as a buyer and as a seller what the housing market is showing us. January, right here, a lot more inventory. If you are looking to buy in the near future right here, there are still homes that have been on the market for quite some time. We have to find a seller that actually is a serious seller that's desperate to sell for whatever reason, relocating because they have to, job, whatever it is. We have to find that seller, and they're still out there. And there's a lot of homes that have been on the market 50, 80, 100, 120 days. However, things are starting to speed up here because the holiday season has passed. Spring season is, in the last few years, has been where the market hits its peak. And then the second half of the year is when it's a buyer's market. However, with these inventory levels being 2,200 units, it might be actually a pretty good time right now as well. And we might not see that spring selling season like we saw in these last few years. I'm also going to show you what happened with some other stuff. So you really want to pay attention to this. And right here, we see the listings are being entered higher. We look at these active listings. So if you take a look here, inventory peaks in September or October, and then the inventory levels bottom out sometime at the end of February, beginning of March, and then the trend of inventory starts going back up because listings in the spring and summer start hitting at a higher level because the sellers are now ready, school year is ending, the weather is better. So right here, if we take a look, that downward trend started. You see the trends going up and down. However, from October all the way to March, we saw that inventory levels were dropping, and we started the year with 7,500, and we ended the month here under 7,500. That's the orange line. The blue line representing 2025. These inventory levels have not started their downward trend in January at all, and they should have. And right here, because, well, if we take a look, we're at 9,427 on Wednesday night. That means Thursday and Friday is going to bring us inventory. We're going to cross 9,500. Now, if you're a home buyer, that's good news for you because there's going to be a lot more inventory, a lot more competition for sellers, and you can still here get a good deal. Now, if the market picks up like it usually does in the spring, and we start seeing that inventory continue its downward trend, however, there was an upward trend here. So the downward trend is going to be something that we really have to pay attention to, because if the market bottomed out to start the year and inventory continues going up, we could be at 10,000 units come March or April. And that's when the inventory level is supposed to bottom out before it starts going up, which would be crazy. Because if we look at this chart over here, and I want to show you guys this, let me actually pull that up. There we go. October of 2022, we had 10,400 units available. In October of 2023, we actually had less units available. And if we go to the graph over here, we see that we peaked in the housing market in May of 2022 at $600,000. So $600,000 in May of 2022 was when we peaked. Then we saw 9 consecutive months of price drops going into January of 2023, and we bottomed out at $510,000. And then over here, so right here, you see 2022, and over here, 2023. And then in the spring of 2023, inventory levels started decreasing because the listings that we're hitting were negative year over year, and all of a sudden we saw an uptick in the spring. However, we didn't see the highs that we saw in May of 2022. We didn't see that in 2023 or in 2024. The spring sees an uptick, and the second half of the year sees a downward trend. However, it's going to be interesting to see if we actually do see that uptick here in 2025 because of what's going on with the inventory levels, and preliminary data is showing that January home median price is actually down from December. So this seems that we're still continuing the downward trend with home prices. However, listings are getting more views. Home buyers are out, spring is coming, and home buyers are ready faster than the sellers because, well, they're ready to buy a home, get into it, and the sellers are waiting for the warmer days for school to be out. So that's why usually there's that uptick, and then it starts slowing down Memorial Day. Well, Memorial Day weekend is when we essentially start approaching 9,000 units, 9,000 plus. Well, we're already at 9,000 and we're now starting a downwards trend. That's why if you're a seller, you are going to want to list your house here in February because you don't want to wait too long. You don't want it to become an official buyer's market. That's been the trend the last few years in the second half. That's why you want to start listing your house and just hoping that that seller's market actually does happen this year. And as a buyer, you see that you have much more inventory according to these levels. Now, back over here to what's going on in the housing market. Right here, under contracts. This is another one to keep an eye out on. If you take a look at this blue dot, we're essentially at the lowest levels since 2021 when it comes to under contracts. And if you take a look at this orange line right there, you see that from March right here, going on to the end of the year, under contracts were actually up compared to 2023. Well, if inventory levels were coming in at a faster pace, more and more listings in 2024, we did need to see an uptick in the under contracts. Well, if under contracts are falling and the entered listings are rising and inventory is rising, that's showing bad news for sellers and good news for home buyers. So if you're a home buyer here looking in the short run, right now is probably the best time here at the end of January, beginning of February, because March and April could see much more competition. But of course, if you're waiting until the second half of the year, I don't see an upswing in the second half of the year. That hasn't been the trend in the last few years. And according to the data, I don't see why there would be an uptick in home prices, especially with inventory levels being this elevated. And if we take a look, right, at the inventory levels, I mean, 11,400 is where we ended last year. And I said that I think we can end the year at the beginning of 2024. I said, I think we can end the year somewhere between 11,500 and 12,000 units. And I was off by what? 88 units. We ended 11,412. And this year, with how much more inventory we have to start in January, with listings being entered at a higher amount and under contracts actually decreasing, I think that we potentially could have 13,000 plus homes active on the MLS once September or October comes. Last year, we peaked at the end of September. 2023, 2022, we peaked in October. That's I mean, it's just the data. And of course, there's all this stimulus stuff still out there, so saying that the crash is happening right here, right now, we first have to see an uptick in unemployment. We have to see layoffs coming in. We have to see some pain in the stock market, because if the stock market is at all-time highs, the companies have a lot of money. They see elevated prices. Shareholders see that. So we need to see some pain in the economy before we see it in the housing market. And I know credit cards are at an all-time high. There's delinquencies on cars. There's delinquencies all over the place, but it seems like people are still holding on, and it might be by a thread, but until that thread does pop, it's essentially going to be maybe one of those roller coaster rides here in the housing market where we see the ups and downs. I don't think we're going to see a 20% crash out of nowhere. We could see, with these inventory levels increasing, we could see home prices dropping by 5 or 10% here as the year continues going. However, we can also see that uptick here in the spring and then the downwards trend in the second half of 2025. And again, that home buyer's guide, the link is down below. It's the ultimate home buyer's guide. It's going to take you from beginning to end, extremely detailed, that we have less stress, less anxiety, more enjoyment in the home buying process. Also terminology that's used, what you need to watch for, the importance of inspections, pre-approvals, how to shop for the lender, everything like that's going to be in there, how to get the better interest rate, which lenders give you. It's an extremely detailed home buyer's guide. So make sure you sign up. The link is down below there. These data points are going to keep coming. Smash that like button if you haven't. Subscribe if you haven't. Help me with the YouTube algorithm. Help yourself, because nobody else is going to be giving this data information like Dinko the Realtor.